California is no stranger to wildfires, but the blazes that ripped through Los Angeles in early January 2025 were different. They were faster, fiercer, and more destructive. Fueled by a dangerous mix of drought, wind, and human activity, the fires tore through iconic neighborhoods like Pacific Palisades, Pasadena, and even Hollywood Hills. The speed and intensity of these fires shocked even seasoned firefighters. This wasn't just a wildfire, it was an urban inferno. Homes were reduced to ash in hours. Businesses were destroyed, and thousands of residents, including some of Hollywood's biggest names, were forced to flee their homes with little more than the clothes on their backs. The images of the firestorm were terrifying, walls of flame towering over homes, orange embers raining down on terrified residents, and a thick choking smoke that blotted out the sun. These fires were a stark reminder of the power of nature and the vulnerability of even the most developed urban areas. They also highlighted the growing threat of wildfires in a world increasingly impacted by climate change. As the planet warms and weather patterns become more extreme, these kinds of events are becoming more frequent and more intense. And as more people move into fire-prone areas, the potential for disaster only grows. The recent California wildfires were not simply a natural disaster, they were a disaster exacerbated by human actions and inactions. Climate change is creating hotter, drier conditions that make wildfires more likely to start and spread. The record-breaking drought that has gripped California for years provided ample fuel for the flames. But it wasn't just the weather that was to blame. Years of underinvestment in water infrastructure left many communities vulnerable. Firefighters faced a nightmare scenario: dwindling water supplies, broken hydrants, and a system unable to cope with the scale of the disaster. The situation was so dire that water tankers were drained within hours, leaving firefighters scrambling to find new sources of water as the flames raged on. Experts point to a dangerous combination of factors that led to this crisis. Climate change is undeniably a major driver, creating the perfect conditions for wildfires to ignite and spread rapidly. But our failure to adapt to this new reality is equally culpable. We have not invested enough in wildfire prevention, forest management, or water infrastructure upgrades. And we have not done enough to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels, the primary driver of climate change. The human cost of these wildfires was immense. Thousands of people were forced to evacuate their homes, often with little warning and even less time to gather their belongings. Many had to navigate smoke-filled roads and gridlocked traffic, fearing for their lives as the fire bore down on them. The evacuation centers were quickly overwhelmed with people desperate for shelter, food, and information about their loved ones. The financial toll is still being calculated, but it is expected to be in the billions. Homes were reduced to rubble, businesses were destroyed, and entire neighborhoods were left scarred. The fires also dealt a blow to California's already fragile economy, disrupting businesses, tourism, and the entertainment industry. The psychological impact of the fires is harder to quantify, but no less real. Many residents lost everything they owned, while others are left grappling with the trauma of fleeing for their lives. The fires also exposed the stark inequalities that exist in our society. While some were able to evacuate to safety and had the resources to rebuild their lives, others were not so fortunate. Low-income communities often located in more fire-prone areas were hit the hardest, and many undocumented immigrants, fearing deportation, were hesitant to seek help or access essential services. The recent wildfires in California were a wake-up call. They showed us that climate change is not a distant threat. It is here, and it is having a devastating impact on our lives. But they also showed us that we are not powerless in the face of this challenge. We can and must take action to prepare for a future where wildfires are more frequent and intense. First and foremost, we need to address the root cause of climate change by transitioning away from fossil fuels and investing in renewable energy sources. We also need to invest in forest management practices that reduce the risk of catastrophic wildfires. This includes thinning forests, clearing brush, and conducting controlled burns. And we need to upgrade our water infrastructure to ensure that firefighters have the resources they need to combat these blazes. But preparedness goes beyond infrastructure. We need to educate ourselves and our communities about wildfire risk and how to stay safe. We need to develop evacuation plans and communication strategies, and we need to work together to create more resilient communities that can withstand the challenges of a changing climate. The wildfires in California were a tragedy, but they can also be a catalyst for change. By learning from this disaster and taking action, we can create a safer, more sustainable future for all.